Huddle around as Climbing the Pocket Network presents Jayson and the boys talking everything Minnesota Vikings. Watch the countdown timer.
Away we go again. Lost like I'm lost on purpose. If found, please return to. Girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road? I've been here before. When I get home, girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road? I've been here before. When I get home, my vision blurry, I'm paying the cost. I'm not enough. In fact, it's even better when you're not involved. When I miss your call, I feel that I evolve. Cause at your mention, I am more dependent than a college student on their parents or an old person on their pension. Not to mention when you hit me on WhatsApp without attention, and a bad booty bitch walks in, she looks tempting. Look, my Achilles heel is when I said what I feel, you said baby come home, and I don't think that I will. Cause all this motherfucking stress is gonna get me killed. Girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road? I've been here before. When I get home, girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road? I've been here before. When I get home,
Huddle around as Climbing the Pocket Network presents Jayson and the boys talking everything Minnesota Vikings.
No, I can't play these games. No, you can't disrespect and call me names. Sending me signals like you about to switch lanes. Well, go on, do your thing. Go on, do your thing. I mix champagne and propane, get lit. I'm trying to forget all the things that you said, all the things that we did. Girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road? I've been here before. When I get home, girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road? I've been here before. When I get home, watch the breakdown. And I get home when I get home. You just gonna act like we normal now. Good luck. Don't you try to call me with that bullshit, telling me you're sorry. You act too quick. That's somebody else's problem now. You're somebody else's problem now. Don't you try to call me with that bullshit, telling me you're sorry. You act too quick. That's somebody else's problem now. You're somebody else's problem now.
Hey everybody, it's Dave here from Good Morning Gallahorn, and we're about to start Climbing the Pocket Networks in the Huddle. But first, I wanted to announce that we are participating in a program called Vlogmas 2020. YouTube encourages everybody to post something every day. They go through Christmas Day, the 25th. However, we're going to do the entire month having live shows for you. And this is the first one Climbing the Pocket Network is going to put on for you. We're going to talk some great Vikings, great stories, have fun, and have a great time. And hopefully bring you some outstanding content. So let's get live. Hey guys, Jayson, it's all yours, buddy.
All right. I worry that Dave set the bar way too high for us, but we're going to do it anyway. We're going to jump in, and it's Tuesday. It's a happy day. We got the crew here. We get to talk Vikings. We got Nick. We can hear him. So let's jump right in. I'm Jason Brown. You can find me on Twitter at BrownJason. And let's just throw it right to the man, the good doctor, Eric Eager. How you doing? How you been?
I'm doing well. I only watched live the last drive, the Teddy drive of that game. I was fixed in on the Bengals Giants game for some reason because I was home. I wasn't at the office. That was the game on. So I got to watch the very end. Kirk Cousins was terrific. Sort of no qualifications there. Panthers kind of screwed up the end of the game, but good on the Vikings for taking that and taking advantage of it.
Love it, love it, love it. And Myles, my man, you tried to turn over a new leaf, being a bit more optimistic, and look at this. Vikings coming through in a situation that they never come through in. Fumbles return for touchdowns. More fumbles return for touchdowns. Late game fumbles. Kirk Cousins clutch. What are your thoughts, man?
You talk about fumbles, and I'm like, man, the fact that they lost the turnover battle by like a wide margin, not a wide margin, but they lost it, and they still gave up 2 touchdowns on offense and still won the game, is pretty crazy. But it was a good game. Like Eric said, Kirk played really well outside of the fumble. I think he was basically flawless in that sense. Did we come to find out that Kirk Cousins is better without Adam Thielen? Is that what this is?
I think that might be what it is. Like without Adam Thielen, they could just feed their wide receiver one. Is that what you're trying to say, or you're trying to say something else?
I'm just playing. I mean, obviously they need Adam Thielen, but I mean, look at the target distribution across the board. It was like basically even everywhere. I think just Jefferson had 12, 10 or 11. I don't know the exact numbers, but all the receivers finished with like 7 receptions and like 70 yards. Jefferson had 2 touchdowns. BB had a touchdown, the game-winning touchdown after basically trying to give the game away with the punt return. And then Olabisi Johnson, he came in and played well, like what he did last year for this team when Adam Thielen was out. Like he kind of was just a reliable receiver that you're looking for from a depth player. So no, it was a good game. I thought defense played really well, and so I'm excited to talk about it. I'm excited to hear Nick kind of go into all his Kirk love. So I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, and there you go. And like you said, it looks like we had Olabisi Johnson with 7 and 74. Justin Jefferson with 7 and 70. Obviously, he had the 2 touchdowns. Kyle Rudolph with 7 receptions, 68 yards. The man, Chad Beebe. A lot of Angels lost their wings, but he had 7 receptions as well. Dalvin Cook coming through with 4. Hell, we even got Brandon Dillon on the board in this game, So a lot of people touched the ball in this one here. And before I pass it over to Nick, got to give a shout out. We got Jerome in the house. Vikings Jerome, how you doing? And last, but certainly not least, the man has been waiting for this day. We know it's official because the books are in the background. Nick, how you doing, my man?
I'm good, man. That was maybe the least fun I've had in a Vikings victory, just because it was a really painful, like with the 2-minute drive at the end of the first half, where they ran the ball 3 times and just kind of garbled the clock. They had a chance to really go down and they run to kick a 53-yard field goal, which they make good, ended up in points. So they aren't punished for poor behavior, but then immediately coming out of that getting the ball back for the first time in NFL history, the same player has fumbles returned for a touchdown on the opposing side. So and from there it's just it was a mess. And but the Vikings came away with a victory, and Cousins had one, so it was really good to see him delivering, spreading the ball around, making under a lot of pressure, making plays despite Adam Thielen being out. So really good development. They were up and down in a lot of ways, but I thought overall this was maybe, as a group, the cornerbacks' best game of the year. I mean, Gladney, Dantzler, they had some mistakes here and there, but even Chris Jones had a really good game. So I saw a lot of good stuff from the cornerback. Still a lot of things that this team needs fix. I'm happy.
All right. So, Myles, I want to run back to you for just a second here because this game, I mean, it had everything in it. And if you generally step away from social media during these games, but if you were watching the game, following along on Vikings Twitter, I mean, pretty much third quarter, everyone had written off this game. Everyone pretty much saw us. This is, right off. Here we go again. Kirk kind of opened the floodgates, or so it seemed, the way people get kind of emotional about it all. He has the fumble, Dalvin fumbles. Tell me about, I guess, your emotions as a fan watching this game, because I guess the strange thing that I noticed afterwards is the Vikings won. People didn't seem as excited about this win as you typically would see from people with a late game win like this one. So what was that all about?
I mean, I think for me, some people are starting to realize the realization of the team is still 5-6. It's nice that they won a football game that they probably should have won anyways. At home, I mean, what is this, their second home win now? They haven't done all that well at home. And I think overall, I think it's just for me, it's a realization that until this team starts taking true strides, and maybe they're starting to take that, but some consistent strides, what are they, they've won 5 of the last 6 games now. So that's, it's impressive, but it goes back to talking about who they're beating and the teams they're playing. And for me, I think fans are just starting to realize that, yes, they beat a Teddy Bridgewater-led Panthers team. And yes, I think you see some fans are really excited the fact that they get to say Kirk Cousins is better than Teddy Bridgewater just because they were just so sick of hearing all the Teddy love. And Kirk's not getting that same type of love the last few years that Teddy was getting, which for me, it's fair, but we don't need to get into that. But overall, I think fans aren't as excited because, they're still 5-6. They didn't beat this great team. They're the Panthers are a solid team because of what they've been able to do, probably more offensively with Teddy Bridgewater and their weapons more than anything. But it's not that exciting because, again, they're not really beating that many good teams. They beat the Green Bay Packers. After that, they haven't beat a good team. They've beat teams that are middle of the road or even worse, probably worse for the most part. And I think it's hard to get excited because they just lost to the Dallas Cowboys. Had you seen this team beat the Dallas Cowboys a week before, I think you'd see even more excitement because they'd be 6-5 right now, and they'd be on, or whatever that looks like. They'd be on their way to being closer to a playoff situation, especially with how Arizona lost this week. Some other teams that are in the hunt for the playoffs, they'd be in a better position to put themselves into. I still think they're going to find their way into a decent chance at the playoffs, but we're going to look back at that Cowboys game and say, well, that was probably the one that got away for them. But at the end of the day, I was excited just because it was a fun game. It was probably the most fun game we've seen all season, I think, in my opinion, from both sides of both teams scored. Both scored in crazy ways, had a crazy finish. I thought it was fun. So I just hope people enjoyed it.
All right. So, Eric, I need to get you in here because Myles brought something up, and I saw, the Bachelor himself, PFF Mike, taking some shots at you after the game, letting you know that, from his perspective, from his vantage, Kirk better than Teddy Bridgewater. We know that, we are fans of Teddy on this show, but as we really look at things from maybe from our heads, not our hearts, what are your thoughts now on where the Kirk versus Teddy, debate that continues to rage on Vikings Twitter all these years later? What are your thoughts on this, after this game? And are your thoughts or opinions on either quarterbacks changed in a big way based on what you saw on Sunday?
Would you rather be a fan of the Panthers or the Vikings right now?
Oh, the Panthers have fans?
I mean, what I'm saying
they probably have a better situation. Yes, they probably have a better situation if you're looking to the future.
Correct. That if they both cost the same amount of money, Kirk Cousins is the preferred choice to Teddy Bridgewater. I don't think that was ever the point. Although Teddy's a top 10 quarterback in terms of yards per attempt, Kirk right now is second. So yeah, he's certainly playing extremely well. The lows for Teddy are not as bad as the lows for Kirk, but obviously the highs for Teddy are not as high as the highs for Kirk. But the problem, obviously we give Kirk a lot of flack and he's been bad at times. The problem with Cousins is not necessarily, who he is. It's what he sort of represented, which was the misguided final piece to a Super Bowl contender, right? If graded on that curve, he's still been a failure. If graded on the is he a good quarterback, of course he went. I mean, he's been terrific at times. And in fact, every single challenge that we've put to him, can he play well in a lost season? Yes, he's clearly shown that. Can he win on Monday Night Football? Yes, he's clearly shown that. Can he win in a game where you need a score at the end? Yeah, he showed that last week. My friend, our friend Matthew Caller wrote about how he mostly feasts on bad defenses. Like, that's a little bit of a narrative, but that's, most quarterbacks feast on bad defenses. Kirk has answered a lot of questions this year. The problem is as Myles said, the Vikings are 5-6, and they're 5-6 in large part because the package deal you got with Kirk, the shell was fine, but the remaining part of it was, ended up going poorly. And I think in a lot of reasons, not necessarily Kirk's fault, but byproducts of the position that the Vikings put themselves in by signing Cousins. If they would have signed Bridgewater and let's say a McCown at the time, the Vikings might be a lot further along to the destination that I think everyone wants, which is a Super Bowl.
All right, Nick, answer back. You are here. Tell us why Eric is wrong and Kirk Cousins, based on all of the things he's shown us this season, is in fact the savior and on his way to being a truly elite NFL quarterback for our Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, I think if the rubric has Kirk delivered a Super Bowl to the Vikings, and the answer for a lot of great quarterbacks is going to be no there. That doesn't change the fact that I think the way he's played, especially the last 2 years straight, has justified the contract he's been given. A top 5 graded quarterback, a top 2 in completion percentage above expectation. He's top 10, I think, in EPA per play. He's doing a lot of really good things, and he's avoiding the bad plays, but Kubiak's system has coaxed out some aggression out of him. He's leading, or he's not leading. He's top 5 in average depth of target. That's not the Kirk Cousins we're used to seeing. We saw, especially in this last game, but we've kind of been seeing it for a while now. He's learning to play under pressure. He's learning to move around the pocket. He's learning to roll out of the pocket when he sees people, if he sees, an opening to a rushing lane. So we're seeing developments in Kirk Cousins' game that I think you can build for the team this year. And this does go back to signing him in the first place because of how much cap space he takes up. But the problem for him is this roster is just so bad around him, other than a couple. Kendricks is great. Smith is good. Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, phenomenal receivers. But you look at the defensive line, it's just so bad, man. And Eric Wilson and Troy Dye, watching them in the run fits, it's just peak after week. So they got a lot of things to do and build around. But I think at the very least, the worst place to be in as a fan is no quarterback and no hope that you'll have a good quarterback. I think Cousins has proven that 2 years straight of being top 5 in PFF grade. I think he's worth paying, the market rate for quarterback. I mean, isn't that your starting quarterback? I think so.
Oh, Nick is using their own grades
he's not.
here.
Nick's not wrong. I mean, the problem is Nick's not wrong. I think the problem though is that what is going to have to happen for the Vikings to be a Super Bowl contender? You're almost going to have a 2016 Falcons draft with Deion Jones, Keanu Neal, and then the previous year you had Grady Jarrett. You have a perfect marriage of coach and Kyle Shanahan and quarterback, and you can get the high end play. And even then, the Falcons were 11-5 and got hot, and they should have won the Super Bowl. They didn't end up getting there. But when you're looking at these quarterbacks who are, and again, it's not fair for me to every week say, cut it off at 4 and say, if you don't have one of the top 4 guys, Kirk's 5, you can't get there. But, we all kind of know it when we see it. There are a certain number of quarterbacks where, they're being paid a lot and they're a bargain. Mahomes, probably Rodgers, Watson certainly is in that category. Wilson's in that category. And it's even difficult for them to make it. So then if Kirk's making a market rate and the team bottoms out a la the Falcons in 2013 and 14, how can they rise up? And are the Vikings the right team currently constructed to do such a thing? In Atlanta, they had to fire Mike Smith, who was a very good coach, to get Dan Quinn, to get Kyle Shanahan into place, and they got one run out of it. They got one Falcons run out of it. And that's really like the tough part. The Stafford Lions, almost nothing since they signed Stafford to the big deal. The Goff Rams, we'll see. They're strong this year, although they've gotten swept by Nick Mullins this year. Like, it's just
So,
a
Eric,
really tough proposition.
Is that the thing then? So, because Kirk is playing about as well as we can hope that Kirk plays. Like the guys ahead of him, I don't think even like the most ardent Kurt opponent, like Adam West, I don't think would have ever expected Kirk to come in and be better than Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, or Pat Mahomes, right? So
Yeah.
Kirk's
He's not willing to admit
as
that
close
either.
to like the ceiling of play as we would hope to see from him. So based on what you're just saying, is it fair that at this point we move the lens maybe away from Kirk Cousins, who's been the lightning rod, and maybe more towards like Mike Zimmer and the system and the way that we're playing and how that might be limiting what we could be doing with this team? And
The philosophies don't match up.
But hasn't that been? I mean, like that's like the meme. Like we've been new. Like isn't that what we've been talking about for a long time? Like Kirk played a great game against the Saints. Kirk played really well most of last year, and he was kind of dog shit in the first two games this year. And he's, and that's really like clouded the beginning. But the whole problem was the underlying philosophy. The whole problem was, wanting to be this power running team, or not power running team, but a run pass team, and not having a third wide receiver, and getting honestly lucky is the wrong word, but like getting lucky with Jefferson, keeping you from being a one wide receiver team. The philosophy there, but also, going into an offseason where not 70% of your moves were rebuild, right? Like 15 draft picks, I think a lot of which were very good picks. But then Michael Pierce and Kirk Cousins and then trading for Yannick Ngakoue, all those things we discussed, that's sort of like, playing just a tip with just trying to win this year, but in reality, kind of not having it be feasible. And then kind of what ends up happening is it falls on Kirk Cousins at the end of a game against Dallas when, he really did nothing wrong except for what most quarterbacks do, which is not score on every drive. And yeah, Kirk's become like but Kirk is the underlying symbol of a team that misunderstood what 2017 was all about, isn't he? I mean, it's not his fault, but he's the symbol, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nick?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think 2018 was the year. That was the most talented. In my mind, that's the most talented roster the Vikings have had in the last 10 years. Everybody wants to say 2017.
Yeah.
Everyone would say 2017.
And the issue, and the issue, 18 was their best roster. And the issue is Kirk mostly played well in 18. He played like crap against the Bills. He played like crap against the Bears both times. And in the second half of the Patriots game, he didn't play particularly well. He was mostly good that year. They weren't a good offense. He got, the offensive coordinator, I think, rightfully got fired. But the problem is, like when the Vikings, put their stamp there, they were paying for no bad games, right? The upgrade from Keenum to Cousins was no bad games. If we get no bad games out of the quarterback, then we're in the Super Bowl. And like when you look at Mahomes' his worst 5-game rolling average is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL in EPA per play. Deshaun Watson, his team's not very good, but he hasn't had a bad game in a long time. Rodgers has some bad games every once in a while, but you know what I'm saying? And Wilson does too. But like, that was the miscalculation, was that Kirk would get them over the hump when they didn't realize the rest of the roster was going to regress, because the 2017 season was such a a good run of luck and fortune that, again, it's not Kirk's fault, but Kirk sort of represents their miscalculation about the last 3 years.
Well,
Well,
and
talk
you
to me
go back
about
to
the playoffs.
you go back.
Is that a thing? Because like it looks like in all the graphics now we're in the hunt. Like that's something that we were kind of laughing about earlier in the season. But if any games get canceled, we're in the playoffs. We're the 8th seed. But like talk to me, Eric. What are the chances now? Because there were some high leverage games early in the season. We didn't come through in them, but things have kind of gone our way since then.
Yeah,
the Vikings are really looking at the playoffs.
Yeah, I give Green Bay. So New Orleans is basically a 99% chance. Green Bay's a 99% chance. Seattle's a 99% chance. And then after that, the Rams are 94%. That's one wild card, assuming Seattle wins. Tampa Bay is 78%. That's one wild card, assuming New Orleans wins that division. And then I have Arizona at 63%. Tampa, the Vikings have a road game in Tampa in 2 weeks. That could certainly turn the tide.
If they find a way to win that game,
I give Minnesota a 25% chance. The reason is basically a reasonable Vikings fan has to believe that the most likely record is 8-8, because winning at New Orleans and winning at Tampa are relatively unlikely, and the Vikings are the kind of team to lose to Jacksonville. I'm just being honest with you. Like at this time during the Dallas week, they were 9.5-point underdog or favorites to Dallas, and they're 9.5-point favorites right now, Jacksonville. And Mike Glennon actually played pretty well last week. So there are some, I certainly am not laying the points with Minnesota this week. And then you have San Francisco at 22%. San Francisco has the same record as Minnesota. They have a tiebreaker with the Rams by virtue of a sweep with them. Atlanta is actually another one. They don't really have that good of a chance, but they do have a tiebreaker with Minnesota should they get hot. Chicago has a 17% chance, but Minnesota has a tiebreaker with them. Those are really the ones there. The rest of the teams are NFC East, which doesn't count. But the Vikings have a good chance. That being said, the betting markets give them a better chance than I do, and that's why in my futures article tomorrow, I actually have the futures bet I would make is Minnesota not to make the playoffs. I think right now they're being overvalued in the betting market, which is historically the case. I mean, people really like Zimmer against the spread, even though we've seen
wouldn't you also want to bet for the Vikings because of the way their quarterback's playing? Isn't that a big part of what we're talking about? Is like when your quarterback starts playing at a higher level, you should expect to win more games.
Yeah, but the problem is like you don't want to buy things at the top of their market. Kirk's probably never played this well over like a 3 or 4 game stretch. Like he's bound for an Atlanta game or like like that. Like people like my thing, and the reason I'm buying this future is if they beat Jacksonville, but Arizona plays okay against the Rams, the price basically stays the same. If they shit the bed against Jacksonville, then this price is going to go through the roof. And there's always that like bottom dropping off in the Vikings. The Jacksonville Jaguars have talent. James Robinson's a really good running back for being undrafted. Obviously Chark. And some of the receivers that they have can give the Vikings some fits. The Vikings don't have a good pass rush to deal with, what is a crappy offensive line for Jacksonville. I think it ends up being kind of a shootout, and all bets are off once that happens. So, the Vikings have a non-trivial chance of making the playoffs now, and especially if they extend it to 8, I think the Vikings are better than a coin flip to make the playoffs.
I think Arizona is the like wild card team that they're competing with the most, in my opinion, based off of all those other teams that are in front of them. Yeah. It seems to be Arizona's the one that they're really, because Arizona is pretty much as inconsistent as the Vikings. I think their highs are a little bit better than the Vikings just because I think Kyler Murray and that offense probably has a little bit more juice. But overall, like to your point, I think if they're going to make the playoffs, it's because they find a way to get ahead of the Cardinals more than any other Bucks, Rams, some of those teams.
Yeah, and the
But let's
tricky
get to
thing,
500, like Clint said.
the tricky thing is the Cardinals have a game against the Giants on the road and a game against the Eagles at home. Again, when I talk about the Vikings basically, this sounds stupid because they could obviously beat Tampa and they could obviously beat New Orleans, but their best case scenario being 8-8. In some ways, the Cardinals' worst case scenario, assuming they can take care of business against the Giants and against the Eagles, is 8-8. They also have 2 games with the Rams, who are sort of Jekyll and Hyde. And in Week 17, the Rams might not even need the game. And then, they're at home against the 49ers, who don't have a home right now. And that their home is Arizona. So it'll be kind of an awkward situation.
For what?
So
I'm talking.
The problem is the Vikings aren't good.
I'm talking positive.
Go wrong for the Panthers to win this game. Like, people say they've won.
I'm talking positive.
Like we muff the punt. Panthers get the ball back. We managed clock management. Cousins goes down and scores. That's great. But then the Panthers get the ball and they go on and they miss a 53-yard field goal and drain the clock. Vikings lose this game, and we're not like talking about the playoffs at all. So a lot of things had to go wrong for the game. I'm not saying they're like it was a fraudulent win or anything. Anytime you claw yourself out of 2 straight fumble returns for a touchdown, that's impressive. But like the Panthers kind of bungled this one. I'm not feeling too confident after everything that went wrown.
Yeah, and then
we did win the game. But I think what Myles spoke to earlier is the fact that, yes, we're happy. The Vikings won the game. It doesn't now mean the Vikings are a great team. And so we're just trying to be honest about our expectations for what this means as the season plays forward.
Yeah, can we pause for a second and realize the 1 point loss against Tennessee is now been avenged? So when everybody says they're secretly good because they lost all these close games, well, you also won these. You won the Houston game close, and you won the Carolina game close.
Can't be good teams close.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think Nick's right. Nick's spot on about Kirk, and Nick's spot on about the Vikings. Kirk's playing extremely well, and the Vikings probably aren't good enough. And unfortunately, like that's also the thing, and Nick, right? Like, so the Vikings in the last 2 seasons, and again, we don't want to divulge to 2-game sample sizes, but need to win against the Bears at home Week 17 last year, and he lays an egg, and then needs to win last year on Christmas Eve against the Packers at home and lays an egg. And it's like Myles saying, well, should we bet into the hot streak Kirk is on? And I kind of think, well, on the roulette, we've already hit a bunch of reds in a row. I kind of want to put it on black, as statistically dubious as that is.
But hasn't Kirk, I guess, again, to play devil's advocate on this and to kind of speak to some of the things that you will also find out there on Vikings Twitter, or even if you go on PFF, like if we spread it over a longer sample size, like if we look over the last 2 years, Kirk has been pretty good over that larger. So like how much of like these bad games that most quarterbacks have it sometimes is like confirming our previous biases versus actually taking a look at like that larger recent sample that we have and saying that like over in this offense and with these weapons that Kirk has, and with Dalvin Cook and all the things that are going on, like Kirk has been doing a pretty damn good job at what they're asking him to do for the most part. Like he still does. You can see sometimes things do speed up for him. He'll make some decision. You're like, oh my God. But for the most part, he's doing a lot better at most of the things that we said we wanted him to be doing, and has been playing pretty well for the last 2 seasons.
But don't you think? Isn't that the whole point though? Like, when the Minnesota Twins, like for like the last, for the aughts, right? The Minnesota Twins were that type of team that didn't always look pretty every day because they had like 5 number 3 starters, but like that's good enough to win 100 out of 162 games. But then when you get in the playoffs against the Yankees and they have 2 number 1 starters and all of your starters are number 3 guys, like that's the composition is not good enough to win the ultimate goal. And like, I agree. Like if Vikings fans' goal was to stay relevant, like Kirk's met that expectation in spades, I think, especially this year where his bad games all happened at the beginning, and and now they have a non-trivial chance to make the playoffs. The problem becomes like the problem becomes is like the very high end play is probably still not necessarily good enough against the truly elite things in this league. And I'm not even saying the quarterback position, but like he had the great win against New Orleans. There were some lucky things in that game, by the way. Will Lutz missing a field goal at halftime, the Dalvin Cook fumble being called back, all that stuff. But then he reaches an elite thing against the Niners, and he's just sort of like, second class in a 10 class system, right? Where only the first class wins. And that's like, I think that the trepidation that people have about Kirk is not that he's not good enough to get you to the dance, but the dance is just a different ball game.
Carl makes a good
Myles,
point.
what do you think about that? What Carl has to say, that, as easy as it is to dunk on Kirk, because it is very easy to dunk on Kirk. He is in and of himself. He's a meme. Like, and there are many of him, out there. Even Nick, who is a Kirk supporter, makes many a Kirk meme because Kirk is just a memeable dude. But like, it's the defense, no? It is the defense.
Yeah. It is. I mean, you look at it. This team's got you guys know the numbers better than me. That's what I'm not here for the numbers. Just like tell me them and I'll believe you. They're like a top. What's their offense overall? Like, what are they, top 10? Top 10 overall offense? Obviously, like in terms of like individual grades, Kirk, Jefferson, Thielen, Cook, those guys are tops. I know that, but like in terms of what they've been able to do offensively, they're pretty good. And normally when their offense is pretty good, normally what you'd like to see is that on a team run by Mike Zimmer, on a team that wants to run the ball effectively, which they've been able to do. Normally with that backing, you'd have at least a high level of defense, and we're obviously not seeing that. And to Nick's point, Nick brought up earlier, like it's not Kirk's fault that the defense has nobody, but at the same time, Kirk's a byproduct of the defense not having people because of contracts. But again, he has no control over COVID. He has no over control of like Michael Pierce opting out, Dino Hunter getting hurt, Anthony Barr getting hurt. Like Kirk has no control over those things. And in terms of like, it's not his job to build the defense. It's the front office and the coaches. That's their job. Kirk's job is to get paid as much as he should and to play ball. And that's what he's been. And so far to this year, that's what he's been doing outside of a few games. I mean, Kirk's doing what he should be doing to help this team win football games outside of a couple of games this year. So overall, the offense is pulling the offense is pulling their weight. The defense isn't stepping up, at least to like a mediocre level for the most part, to like take them over the top a little bit more. And that's not to say that if they had a better defense, like let's say they just had a middle of the road defense, that this team would be, the New Orleans Saints or anything like that. They'd be 9-2. No, I'm not saying that this team wouldn't still be like 7-5 or whatever that number would look like. But I'm saying that they'd have a better output for the rest of the season and maybe even looking to the future. But there's still a lot more question marks on the defense moving to as we move the rest of the season and into the future, because there's just so much unknown. You have a lot of young players that you're just going to have to hope take the next step. Jeff Gladney, who I think has played better than his PFF grade. That's just my opinion. But like, I think he has a chance to be a good player. We still don't know though. Cam Dantzler, another cornerback, we don't know. DJ Wanham, 4th round defensive end, he's playing better. We don't know. Can he be a starting level defensive end? We don't know. But we got to figure some of those things out. But they're going to have to put faith in those players and the coaches to figure that out as they move forward. So it'll be fun to watch. But yeah, to that point, like the defense really does need to start picking it up as we go if they want to have any outside shot at the playoffs.
Other than the Saints, who are the teams that scare you in the NFC? Like, if let's say we get into the playoffs with Kirk, like Myles says, if you have a quarterback playing like Kirk Cousins, you have a chance. Who are the offenses that we should really be afraid of in the rest of the league that we might meet up with? Like
all of them.
I mean,
yeah, the only team the Vikings can't beat,
a little better.
The only team the Vikings would be over a touchdown underdog to is New Orleans.
So
That's fair.
I think because they were
Definitely
6.5
baked
point
in.
underdogs to Green Bay in Green Bay the week they won. Now some of that was wind aided because bettors I think rightfully realized that a wind game would benefit Minnesota's style of play more than Green Bay. But anyway, they were how many point underdogs to Seattle? They were was it 7 or 8 in the previous meeting? And I think the Seattle's come back down to earth and Minnesota's come back up. So that would be less than a touchdown. LA wouldn't be favored by more than a touchdown against. So they would be less than last year for reference in the first round of the playoffs. They were 8.5 point underdogs to the New Orleans Saints. So their first round game in theory would be easier this year than it was last year. I think in the NFC, there's really only one team that I think has. So, for example, my Super Bowl projections: Kansas City wins the Super Bowl 28% of the time. New Orleans is second at 13, and then Green Bay 10, Pittsburgh 9, Seattle 9. It drops off fairly substantially, but New Orleans is the one team in the NFC that has the upper hand. A, because they have the 1 seed currently, and B, because I think they are the most complete team. Their defense is extremely it has a lot of depth, and the offense. I think if Breeze
is this even
comes
with
back,
Taysom?
if Breeze comes back and plays the way that he played in the previous 4 weeks before being hurt, they're probably the most complete team in the conference.
But what about Taysom?
Taysom sucks. Let's stop.
So let's so what you're saying is, for those looking for some.
Did you guys see Latavius Murray?
optimism.
Did you guys see former Viking great Latavius Murray give somebody the sauce on Sunday afternoon? He had
So Eric,
he
but what I'm hearing from
anyway.
you is if Breeze is still banged up when he comes back, and we're dealing with like a Taysom-led New Orleans Saints team, if this Vikings team can get into the playoffs, even though Flip doesn't like us talking about the playoffs, this would be the type of year for these Vikings to hop in there and actually maybe make a run because of how not great the NFC is and how good our quarterback is playing.
The whole conference is very flat. I could see the whole conference is extremely flat other than possibly New Orleans. But so I could very much see the Vikings getting blown out in the first round of the playoffs, and I could see them making a run. That's how weird the conference is.
Just need Kirkuary. We've seen Kirktober and we've
Kirkuary.
seen Kirkvember. Just need Kirkuary.
Kirkuary. Yeah, that's right. I mean,
Kirkuary. I don't know if I can get with that.
I don't think any, for what it's worth, I don't think any NFC team stands a chance against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, but or even Pittsburgh. I think.
Imagine these quarterbacks trying to cover like Kelsey and Hill and everyone.
Dude, I mean the Chiefs before the Monday night game, the Chiefs had the top 2 receivers in the NFL in yards. Top 2. One was a tight end. Like they're unreal. I do think that the defense for the Chiefs is somewhat of a liability, but defense only matters so much.
Yeah,
and Flip, I got to talk about the playoff run because you're not here, and I know how upset it makes you when we talk about the playoffs with the Vikings not being at 500. And with that said, we talked about it a little bit. Nick, what are your thoughts on how you see this game? We did this a couple weeks back with Dallas. It was the game that would get us to 500, where Flip could maybe start to think about the playoffs. We're back once again, new opportunity, get to 500, go on a run, make some noise. Kirk Cousins erasing narratives. How do you see this game going against the Jaguars?
I mean, the Jags aren't a very good team, but that doesn't mean you can count them out. I don't know. Like Mike Glennon doesn't necessarily scare me too much, but I guess we'll see. I don't know. The defense is bad all around. They've got like 3 of like the lowest graded cornerbacks in PFF's entire system. The defensive line is bad. I mean, they have some weapons. Visca Chenault's he's interesting. DJ Chark is good. And so you can certainly see a scenario. I mean, we just saw this with the Cowboys, where a team they were pretty heavily favored against. They were able to eke out a win. The other team was able to eke out a win again. So I don't really know, but at the same time, like it's funny talking about the Saints all this time, because the reason I'm kind of zen about a Vikings fan, despite the fact that I don't expect anything to happen with like even if they do on the off chance make the playoffs, they're not going to go on a run, I doubt. But like, you know, if you think back to those 3 years where the Saints were 7-9, they had the quarterback figured out. They had some really great pieces on offense. Just weren't a very talented team overall. But I think if this Kirk that we've seen for the last 2 years now is who Kirk is going forward, and we have the quarterback out, that makes me hopeful that maybe like the Saints or like Rivers, like you just them and have a shot. And yeah, that's not going to be as good as having Patrick Mahomes and Andy helming your team, but like it gives you a shot at least if you have that figured out. And you could see situations where Jack and Spielman, with how he likes to maneuver in the draft, can build something long term out of who knows. As for this Jags team, very good, but that doesn't mean, we've seen before, that doesn't mean that the Vikings should just write this one in already as a W.
Talk to me, Myles.
Yeah, well, I want to start real quick. One thing I wanted to touch on about Kirk and the Vikings against the Panthers. One thing I was impressed about that we finally got to see was the Vikings passing game, and Kirk Cousins played well when the running game was kind of stagnant. They didn't really do much in the run game. That was
Kirk
impressive.
was our most efficient rusher.
Right? Yeah, he was shaking dudes, spinning. He was doing things we don't really like see him do. But like overall, like that. So to me, I segue that into the Jaguars game because what most teams are going to focus on against the Vikings is Dalvin Cook, because that's just what teams do, because they think if we can shut down the Vikings run game, we give ourselves a chance, because the Vikings want to be a ball dominant, run heavy team who just sprinkles in play action. If they can stop the run, they feel they have a better chance of beating the Vikings, because then that means that it all goes on Kirk's shoulders. But if Kirk's going to continue to play well, that's a good thing for the Vikings, because then that means that they can look at more explosive plays, getting the ball into their receivers, their playmakers' hands, Justin Jefferson, hopefully get Adam Thielen back here soon. I'm not going to say Chad Beebe, but like, those guys, getting the ball in those guys' hands and let them make plays. And I think if that's kind of where we're going to go a little bit, and the Vikings pass game can continue to progress in that way without an effective run game, I think that's when you're going to see this team really take off, because if they get the run game back against some of these teams, that's just going to make them even more dangerous, because you can see that they don't need to be as reliant on the run game. So I like seeing that if they can do that moving forward. So against the Jaguars, I mean, what did I say this against Dallas? Just beat them. They're trash. They should beat this team. It shouldn't be like Eric's talking about, like the fact that there's a fucking question mark, and the fact that this game could go any way, even though they're like 9+ point favorites, as they should be. Like, this game should never be in reach for Jacksonville. Like, it shouldn't be. The fact that it might is the worrisome part that I think we like too many people get upset about, is the fact that like they're still like this. Well, yeah, but against the fucking Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 1-10. So like, that's my that's it. But like, no, for real, they should beat the shit out of them. It shouldn't be anything close. If it is, Flip, we'll talk.
Can I? The Jacksonville Jaguars are the first team in NFL history to lose 2 games 27-25 in the same year.
Oh shit.
They beat the Colts on opening day. They lost to what is likely going to be the division title Tennessee Titans by 3 on the road. They lost to the Chargers despite leading in the fourth quarter. They have the aforementioned 25-27 losses, including last week, to what is going to be a playoff-bound Cleveland. And they went on the road and lost to the Green Bay Packers by 4. This is a team that plays hard. I don't think Doug Marone's a problem. They go for the right 2-point conversions. They go for the right 4th downs. Their kicking game has been an issue this year, but their little running back is averaging 4.6 yards per carry. James Robinson, undrafted. I think he's going to be a problem for the Vikings, and I do think it depends upon if Chark plays. It looks like he might not, but if Chark plays along with a Chenault, they're not terrible on the outside. I think this will be a shootout. I don't think I can lay the points with the Vikings, and I do think there's a chance the Vikings lose. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some sort of like grinded out 24-20 win that we're all like a little bit pissed about.
I feel like Flip is salty that Teddy Bridgewater didn't come through for him, because on the last show, Flip was very much like, if Teddy really is truly a Viking at heart, he'll come through and do it for us. And Teddy didn't come through, and Flip seems very upset about this. So this is something we'll
Teddy
need to
did
investigate.
come through, though. He did.
I don't
Like
know,
the
Eric,
last two
the
times.
the start of that game, Teddy was trash.
No, he
And
looked like
I
shit.
am a diehard. He
did.
played terribly.
And he missed.
And-
And he should have hit that. And he should have hit the game-winning touchdown before they gave the ball back to the Vikings. So
Yeah. No. He was let down by his coach more than anything. Kicking a field goal, like run, pass, kick field goal when you're at the 3-yard line is a trash sequence, right? And then
there he is. There he is.
yes. And
We
then
got him
here's
in
the other
here.
thing. Teddy's last 2 starts in the state of Minnesota ended wide left. Like I can't. Teddy didn't let the Vikings down against Seattle, and he didn't let the Panthers down on in the last part of Sunday. He played like shit the whole game. He did play like shit the whole game, but he brought he brought the Panthers from a desolate situation of giving up a game-winning touchdown. There was too much time for Teddy. Teddy threw that lollipop down the middle of the field to Samuel. He had the throw that got them in field goal range. It's 2020. If you can't hit a 54-yard field goal, go back to where you went to. I don't know. Like Teddy did what he was supposed to do at the end of the game.
He had one good drive. I'll give you that.
Yes.
Yeah.
There we go. Well, Flip, we've missed you. So, like, come here, bring us home. I know you don't want to get too far ahead of us. So talk to us about Jacksonville and what we should be looking for. Is it as cut and dry as Myles said? We should just go in there, beat the shit out of them? Or do you have some trepidation because you don't know which Vikings team is going to show up? Or are you like, with Vikings Jerome saying like, buck up, we won the game. It's time to just believe in this team and ride this thing on out as we move forward?
If the Vikings win on Sunday, then Viking Jerome and I will be best buds, man, and we will talk crap about going into Tampa beating day ass. We're not scared about no Taysom Hill on the Saints. We'll talk about rolling through the rest of the way to get to 10-6 and to get to the playoffs. But they got to earn that type of talk by beating Jacksonville, just like Myles said. I mean, why should I even have to look at any stats or numbers or betting lines or records when we're talking about this game? The fact that we even have to bring that up means that the Vikings are not where we want them to be. So if they win, we'll talk about beating ass down the stretch. I got to come up with a better term, better catchphrase on that. Until then, it's the young guys. It's Justin Jefferson continuing to grow. It's seeing if we can get any type of a pass rush at all. Because sooner or later, I just wow. I guess we might need to trade a second round pick to get a defensive end, but oh wait, we already tried that. So
they got a third round pick back, conditional, I think, right?
Oh, okay. Well, that makes it great. We can make the playoffs without a defensive end. Why'd we trade for him in the first place?
And that pick might turn into a 4th round pick that they gave.
By the way, guys, if you guys want to see
moves.
If you guys want to see what despair is, I was thinking back to the last time the Vikings played the Jags, 2016.
Oh yeah.
During the middle of the meltdown, the Vikings went to Jacksonville, and I don't over under a number of times Matt Asiata got stuffed on 4th and 1.5. Remember that year? Every fucking time. They had a 4th and 1.
Had that 3 touchdown game. He had like 2 different 3 touchdown games.
2014, he had like 4 3 touchdown games and averaged like 1.8 yards carry. But 2016, he and Jarek got the reins of the worst running game in football. And if I had to see that dude,
if I remember,
if I had to see that dude try to run behind Rhett Ellison for 4th and 1 more time, I was going to pull my eyes out because, and I think the Vikings ended up winning that game, and I think they might have even covered the spread, but it was the ugliest GD game I've ever seen in my life. Followed,
Okay.
and if you want to go 2 Jacksonville games back, 2012 opening day, Blair Walsh hits like a 58-yard field goal to tie it after Cecil Shorts goes over Chris Cook. This has been a series, and of course, I think 2008, Chile took a safety at the end.
No, wait.
Just to screw up the betting line. Like, this has been a bad series of football games.
Hold on, Donnie. That's a great point about the Vikings Jaguars series, Eric. Donnie, you don't get to talk to us like that, man. You don't get to talk to us like that. We are the most positive Vikings fans, but we know what a winning team and what a winning football team looks like. So if you want to live in this fairy tale land, pretend like this is the greatest purple team since slight spread, you go on ahead. You can watch a different channel. Okay?
We've watched these teams before,
The Vikings, we will cheer where.
And
they're not there yet unless they beat Jacksonville. We're not asking much. We're asking them to beat the fucking Jaguars before we start talking about like real football fans. Is that too much to ask,
right,
Donnie?
Because Flip was asking them to beat the fucking Falcons at home and the Cowboys at home. Like, stop pretending that this team is some blameless lamb that hasn't lost a freaking game before. Like this,
and when they lose, the sky's falling. When they win, that we should be praising them like they're the best fucking team in football. Like you gotta stop riding the waves. You gotta stay consistent with the fact that
I was trying to put money down on the Vikings against the Cowboys game, and you're coming here trying to call me negative Nancy talk. Come on, Donnie, we don't need that. You come back after they beat the Jaguars, and you'll get the podcast you want.
The spread is big enough for this game. Take Jacksonville plus 9.5, and there's still a good chance the Vikings will win and you'll get paid.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Well, gentlemen, we made it through the hour. It's the first day of Vlogmas. I promise you, many of these shows will be exactly what Donnie's looking for. I'm not sure if that'll be tomorrow. Tomorrow will be Yinka, trying to defend his anti-Kirk stance for however long that we're on the show, while he gets a public flogging.
I heard Yinka made a hype video based off of that Teddy Bridgewater game. He's got a 17 reel hype video of all Teddy's incompletions coming to you.
Oh, yeah. So tomorrow we bring back the OG CTP crew. And every day, all of December, we're going to have a show for you, talking Vikings, having some fun. Some of it will be good, some of it not so much. But we're having a good time, and hopefully
we're still Debbie Downers.
We are Debbie Donnie.
Downers. We're Debbie Downers.
I'm playing with you, man. We're Debbie Downers.
We're Debbie Downers. We're Debbie Downers.
All right. Tune in next week.
But that's it. Tune in next week after we beat the Jaguars, and Flip will probably be a little bit less of a Debbie Downer. I make no promises for Eric or myself. Myles, maybe Myles will be back. But that's it.
I would say this podcast is about.
Here's my prediction:
under 500 podcast.
Donnie, lay off Flip, because here's my prediction: the Vikings are going to lose the game to the Jags, and I'm going to be telling everybody how they should bet on the Vikings against Tampa the next week.
And they're going to beat
that's the roller coaster. At least Flip thinks they're going to win. I have doubts. Actually, no, I think the Vikings will win. I don't know if it'll be by 9 or more. But
I can't find a Jaguars fan
cover,
to bet.
but they're going to win. They're going to win. I feel very confident in this.
They better.
That's it. That's the show. David, play the music.
SKOL Vikes.
Well, that was a great show, and we're going to play the rollout real shortly. But I wanted to remind everybody, since we're doing this every day, that you can come to our webpage on YouTube, Climbing the Pocket, and see all of our shows. And we're also adding some. There'll be some breakdown from some of our guys that you don't see, our writers. So look forward to that. We're broadcasting every day, Monday through Friday, usually around 9 p.m. Eastern Time. On the weekends, depending on the game. So we want to wish you a great week and see you tomorrow night. Thank you for watching or listening As always, if you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And if you're listening to the podcast, please rate us on your favorite aggregator. SKOL, everybody.